welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and my esteemed friends from B schools across India. We have with us the students who have participated in our monthly B school case study competition that we have, and we have been having it for over a year now, quite successfully. We have different professors, faculty, and other institutional audience and members of the panel over here for this edition of the B School Case Study Competition. And I would like to welcome three gentlemen over here, very eminent personalities in the sector that we will going to take up today. But before that, a short context to this B School B Study, Bsmart B Study case study competition. Like every month, we put up a case study problem statement for competition to our students. They apply their brains and they come together to apply and solve that problem. And so for January, we had a case study competition on Indigo. The topic was rebuilding Indigo, given the kind of crisis that it went through very recently, we all know. So that was the idea. But in general, for this webinar, we would like to sort of expand the scope from rebuilding Indigo to go into understanding the current status of aviation in India. Being a vast country, we have probably very handful of airlines, in the country compared to some of the other markets, which are equally or less or more kind of the same size as India. So we'll basically study and understand from these three eminent personalities, get a perspective on the aviation status in India. So for that, I would call upon the three gentlemen over here. We have Professor Jitamitra Desai, Professor of Operations Research in the Decision Sciences Group at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, very popularly known as Professor JD. So Professor JD, I would refer to you like that. He is currently also a member, Board of Governors at IIM Bangalore, and a member of the Board of Studies Management at Visvesvaraya Technological University, VTU, very eminent university in the South. His research areas include mathematical computational analytics to develop large-scale optimization algorithms in aviation, transportation, and location theory, energy analytics, and wireless communication networks. Very, very important areas of aviation in current scenario in today's Dr. Desai also works closely with the Government of India on several strategic initiatives, particularly in studying the performance of the infrastructure projects and its associated sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Professor JD to this webinar. Thank you, Professor JD, for taking time out and coming for this webinar with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Anurag Gupta, partner, Deloitte India. And who doesn't know Deloitte? Anurag is a partner with Deloitte India with over 15 years of experience across various transportation and logistics sector, with focus on the aviation sector. I believe, Anurag, you head the aviation vertical for Deloitte at this point. He has led various engagements in the aviation sector like business planning, operations transformation, project structuring, various greenfield and brownfield airports across the world and others. Provided aviation infrastructure advisory to clients, including private airport developers and government bodies like the Ministry of Civil Aviation and Airports Authority of India. So thank you, Anurag, and do welcome him to this webinar. Anurag, thank you for taking the time out and coming over here. I believe you have a hard stop at 6:30. So, whenever the time comes, you may just drop off. So we won't hold you back. We know that, you have certain prior engagements.
Thank you, Arindam. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. We also have the Dr. Swapnil Sahoo. Apparently, Dr. Sahoo will take some time to join us. He will join us around 6:15. But nevertheless, I would like to introduce him to this audience over here. Dr. Sahoo is Faculty Strategy and Entrepreneurship, Great Lakes Institute of Management, Gurugram. With 17 years of extensive corporate experience, he has held senior strategic roles at leading organizations such as Wipro, Accenture, Cognizant, Mahindra, and most recently as Global Partnership Head at 42 Gears Mobility Private Limited. His research focuses on areas like aviation, neurodiversity, family business dynamics, and others. So we welcome Dr. Sahoo. Though he is not here at this moment, he will be joining us around 6:15. So thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time out and coming over here. We will quickly go into our panel discussion at this point. You know the format, that we will have a panel discussion and then we will announce the prize winners, the three toppers from across the country who have topped the this month's case study contest, and we will then conclude with the announcement of next month's case study contest, which is next month, meaning for February case study. We are already into February. So quickly going to Professor JD, if I may ask you that, if you can just give us a broad landscape of the current state of aviation in India, and particularly why do we have broadly a duopoly in India, of this market size, basically Indigo and Air India, compared to the US and European markets and all.
Thank you, Arindam. First and foremost, thank you to Business Standard for inviting me to be here. It's a pleasure. I think before I begin that particular question, I think we should understand, one, aviation is a growing sector in India, and I don't think it gets talked about often enough. And so I want to thank Business Standard for putting this up, because I think it's a sector which is of national importance. It has a lot of strategic consequences to what we do. So I think it's important that we address it and it comes to the forefront in terms of business education. Well, I mean, if you look at the landscape in India and broadly even aviation, I want to divide this into sort of three groups, right? So there is airports, there is airlines, and then there are what we call the air navigation service providers, which is essentially the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States, or the Civil Aviation Administration Authority of Singapore, or in our case, the Airports Authority of India, right? So broadly, these are the three large pieces that most of us would sort of interact with, when you think of aviation as a sector. So it's airports, airlines, and the ANS piece, right? There are, of course, airline manufacturers like Boeing and Airbus. There are, software developers who would develop software systems for radar control and so on. The big players being, Indra Systems from Spain, or, Raytheon from the United States and so on, right? There's Thales from France, which is also another big player. So broadly, there are a lot of pieces in the aviation sector. India's aviation sector, if I were to focus on us, is, I think, in a growing phase. I would characterize ourselves as perhaps a mid-market segment. We have over 135 airports in the country. Broadly, amongst them, about 25 of them are well functional, in the sense that there are a number of airlines that are operating out of these airports. Most of the other airports are fairly low traffic. They don't have many airlines that are operating out of them. There are about 600 airstrips in the country. A lot of them are, and again, I'm going to sort of confine my remarks to civil aviation, not military, because, this is broadly what most people would interact with. So there are about 135 airports in the country. The largest among them, of course, are the 6 metros, which are Delhi, Mumbai, which are the largest, followed by Bangalore and Hyderabad, followed by, Chennai and Calcutta. The first 4 of them, of course, are controlled by, what we call the PPP model, which is the public-private partnership model. Delhi with the GMR Group, Mumbai with Adani Airports Holding Limited. Bangalore, of course, is, Fairfax. Hyderabad again with GMR, and then, of course, Chennai and Calcutta with Airports Authority of India. Right? There are 14 PPP airports in the country. There are, and I think there are a few of them which will probably go into PPP mode in the future. The remaining airports in the country are, of course, still under the control of the government, which is the Airports Authority of India, right? Amongst all of the setup that we have, the two larger ones, which are Delhi and Bombay, are the only two ones which are in the top 50 in the world, right? So all the others in the world, out of the top 50 in the world, 15 of them come from the United States. The rest of them, most of them come from the European Union, and a few of them from Southeast Asia, Changi Airport and Hong Kong being the large ones in the Southeast Asia region, right? So this is broadly the landscape that we're sort of operating in. In terms of if you look at a global landscape for India, right? The second part of the question that you asked me was in terms of the airlines, right? So if you look at the airlines in India, we have only two of them, Air India and Indigo. Indigo having a 65% market share, Air India having about 25%, and then the smaller ones, Akasa, Star Airlines, and so on, having smaller market shares and so on. And you were asking me why this is so. To me, it's not about having a duopoly. I think that's perfectly okay for us because we are still a nascent aviation market. We are still growing. India's aviation market also competes extraordinarily with our railways. See, one of the things that is missing perhaps in the United States, one, because they're a geographically large country, and because they also have an extensive interstate highway driving system. For them, the two bigger multimodal modes of transportation are driving and airways, right, and airlines. Whereas for India, it is railways, right? So railways like the Vande Bharat, for example, competes very well with airlines. So I think for me, it's more important for us to recognize, what is the market that we are in, and in some ways, I don't think the challenge for us is to go from a duopoly to a larger set of airlines in some ways. But for us, I think the bigger challenge for India is to go from what I think is a point-to-point destination, which is where we are right now, to moving ourselves to a global aviation hub. Right? I'll pause here and.
Right. Thanks, first, JD. Put things in perspective. It's good to understand that what is the priority and what is the importance, and it's very interesting to understand that it's more about the market that we are in, and where mobility is the first priority, and to understand that it's not necessary that multiple airlines will benefit the country or will be better for people, more than whatever. So I will quickly go to Anurag because, Anurag has lesser airtime, I guess, and then we are already at 6:17. Anurag, I would ask you something which I had actually kept for Professor JD. But I would quickly also, I think you'll be also a person, who can answer this on as young MBAs and young managers. How do you play a leadership role, and what do you think one should do if you have to be a leader of a smaller airline coming into the space where Indigo, Air India and all are there, and fighting it out and making your presence felt, and what you should do?
Thank you, Arindam. Interesting question. I think India is the place to be if you are a smaller airline. And let me start putting together some context. You must have heard of the RCS scheme, UDAN scheme, Regional Connectivity Ude Desh Ka Aam Nagrik.
Correct.
And if you look at it, it's one of the success stories India has.
Just a small interruption, Anurag. Just one quick. We have with us Dr. Swapnil Sahoo, who has joined just a few minutes back. So I thought I'll let you know. Carry on. Sorry.
Hi, Professor. Hi, Dr. Sahu. So, Arindam, if you look at it, I think the RCS UDAN scheme, it's one of the success stories wherein actually the world has stopped, taken a few references, learned a few things. And what it has done, it has actually given rise to a large set of new regional players. If you look at it over last 7 to 8 years since the UDAN scheme has happened, the number of new regional airlines which have actually come up, which have found a sustainable, commercially scalable business model, we can count them probably more than 10 to 15 airlines which are there. Now, if you are a regional airline, I think what you do when you compete with Indigo and Air India, I think the answer is only focus on your customer. Focus on your flyer. Provide when you are a regional airline, that gives you a headway, that gives you a larger canvas to delight your customer, to give a more personal attention to the customer, to right from the point when they start their entire journey, when they start booking you and they have chosen you, right till the end, you have taken them to the right place, or their place of destination. And I think customer comes first for sure. And believe me, the way we have seen duopoly, if you have seen Indigo, and of course Air India is a new entrant, I would like to say we are a 1.5 poly rather than duopoly. Of course, not to forget about SpiceJet and Akasa and a few others in the pipeline. Uh, I think another element is definitely operations excellence. I think once the customer is taken care of, 60% of your problem of your battle is won. The remaining 40% is all about having the operational configuration and operational excellence right. Whether it is choice of aircraft, whether it is the right amount of people, whether it is adopting the right level of technology and automation to ensure that you optimize the cost at every level of your operations. That is where even the larger players have gone wrong, if you look at it. Aviation is a very capital intensive market, and I think uh, achieving excellence is just not a luxury, it's a question of survival in aviation going
Absolutely.
forward. So customer and operations excellence will be the start with for any new CEO of
I mean, to an
anything.
extent, cost optimization, if you talk about, Indigo has shown, how cost optimization can be taken to a certain level. Even if they have not achieved the perfect 10, but they have reached about 9.5 kind
Yes.
of a position, where they have shown the. But it's also, I think, a little bit more about the route rationalization, right? The kind of routes that you fly, where you have the optimum traffic and all kinds of things. And Indigo at one point has sort of cannibalized that position, and they have pretty much covered the country with a lot of route rationalization, and that's where they have kind of got the major market share. Anyway, I will come to another point to you, because I think you're almost there, kind of. You're going to leave us at any moment. I just wanted to know, in the technological front and all, where is Indian aviation at this point? And what would it take, in the next 5 years down the line? What should Indian aviation sector do to sort of be there? Um,
So if you look at technology advancement, see, aviation is a very integrated business. What's set as a standard globally comes at the right same time for Indian flyers and for Indian stakeholders. So it's not that we are lagging in specific elements of any technology ecosystem. However, we are the technology leader. And I think going forward, if you look at it 6 to 7 years, I would like India to actually, rather than playing a catch up game, to actually shift and go ahead of this pathway and actually guide the world on a few things. For example, the kind of airports we have. We have shown to the world how, if you look at Bangalore or some of the terminal best of the airports, we may not be ranking, but actually we have shown that how efficient an airport can run and what kind of passenger experience you can see. And we have some of the best in class airports. I don't care about the rankings, what they say. If you have passed through Terminal 2 airport in Bangalore, or for example, Mumbai Terminal 2, probably best in class anywhere in the world. But what I believe is, I think going forward, aviation is going to change. In next 5 years, India will double its number of flyers to around 300 million. We will build in 50 to 60 new airports. And in that, I would see that some of these larger concepts which are being talked about, India should take a lead. For example, biometric, contactless security, biometrics check-in. A person just walks into the airport, and beyond DigiYatra, we are able to identify what the person is, and we are able to do the complete security check on a contactless manner rather than standing them in long lines. So I think adopting technology in improving the aviation processes, especially with use of AI and advanced technology, is something which this is my wish list. I would like India to show the world how this can be done. There are instances wherein we have already our airlines, or probably some of our airports, are as good as anyone in the world, whether you look at the best in class. if not in scale, but at least in quality of operations. But going forward, airports, whether it is automation, adopting AI, showing the world how it's done, even from airlines' point of view, how we can actually delight a passenger going forward, how we can ensure that any change in the passenger's itinerary is not reactive. We tell the passenger well in advance. Even the way we airlines maintain their aircrafts, predictive maintenance. Right now, it's more of a preventive maintenance. There's a clear technology which exists and used by other, for example, railway ecosystem or metro ecosystem in India. And we are one of the leaders in that to shift from a preventive maintenance to a predictive maintenance, assess the health of the asset and the aircraft or other aviation assets, and predict failure or predict when there is a need to maintain and do a maintenance intervention rather than doing a preventive health check, preventive checkup. So I think these are some of the areas I definitely see, because there are prototypes, there are ecosystem which already exist in India, and it's only a matter of time for aviation to just adopt that ecosystem. And I would definitely like India to actually lead the world and show them a few things how this is done correctly going forward.
Right. Thanks, Anurag. Thank you so much on this thing. I think it's almost time. You still have 4 minutes. If you can give a quick touch up on, the infrastructure front. Basically, we have talked about technology. If you can tell us a little bit about infrastructure, because after that, I will quickly go to the technology and infrastructure to both Dr. Sahu and as well as Professor JD. So yes.
So see, you want me to talk about how we can, what is the pathway for infrastructure going ahead?
Infrastructure, yes. You have already said that, there will be 50 and more new airports to be built and all. Apart from that, what are the other infrastructure support that we can think of?
See, these are greenfield airports, which will be
Right.
built to actually in tier 2, tier 3 cities to actually meet demand. Then there is a larger pathway which we are looking at to expand and the capacity of the existing airports which are there. And we believe that from a 16 to 17 million flyers in a year, 165 to 170 million flyers in a year to a 300 million flyers by 2030. The demand will equally come from tier 1 cities and equally by tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So converting some of these larger uh, tier 2 or tier 3 smaller airports, you don't need a swankier airport like we have in Delhi. Getting the asset light approach, creating a very functional approach in tier 2 and tier 3 cities for the new airports which are coming, or even expanding the larger airports in tier 1 and tier 2 cities, has a deep impact on the way how much you end up paying, how much customers end up paying. So having that expansion right at the right cost is a very important and very tough task, if you ask me. And we have our regulator in India with the Airport Economic Regulatory Authority of India, which has a tough role to play going
Right.
forward to ensure that this happens, that the cost capacity happens not at the cost of value to the passenger. Passenger should get what they pay for. And in the second tier 2 and tier 3 cities, we should have an asset light, functional airport approach, wherein people just come in and they just fly. I think rather than having the large retail areas or probably some of those facilities which you see in tier 1 and 2. So airports is a different calibrated airport strategy based on the category and the class of traveler you're looking at is definitely one. Second is fleet. I think we will be, I think, doubling our fleet or more than. I think we have one of the largest orders if you look at with Airbus and Boeing, with Air India coming in and probably CASA and others. I think going forward, I see state of the art aircrafts coming in, shifting from a category 4D to probably larger 4E aircraft, double aisle aircrafts. So fleet expansion is definitely will be a focus, because it's not only about increasing capacity, but also carrying the passengers at the right cost. So having the right fleet, and that is what Indigo has won. That is a strategy which Indigo has done right. And probably I see Air India and Akasa to also follow the same path
Do you think
going
do you
forward.
think sustainability, more of electric aircraft or like, getting alternative fuel for aircraft will also sort of lead to the cost optimization for customers, and therefore more incentive to fly.
See, electric vehicles, definitely, electric EV tolls, definitely. Essentially, what an EV toll is doing, it's actually making you fly from your nearest, either from your home or your nearest place of a transit, rather than going all the way to an airport and passing through that transit time of 2 to 3 hours. So, first of all, time savings and cost savings are definitely with EV toll. In terms of sustainable aviation, I think the jury's still out. Whether it will definitely green the ecosystem. How much of it will actually translate into savings for the passenger is something we are yet to see.
Yet to
But
see.
EV toll, yes. The question is not, I think now the question is not whether they will happen or not. They are happening. We have to accept it. The question is, Raman, how fast they can happen. Whether I would like to see them an EV tolls operating from a Delhi or Mumbai, of course, in the most, I think in the most safe ecosystem around it, within next 2 years. But again, as the old Chinese saying, beware what you wish for. I would definitely like to wish for EV tolls and sustainable ecosystem to actually play their larger role or their rightful role within the next 5 years.
Great. Thank you so much, Anurag. The time is up from your end, I guess. Thanks for this. So Anurag, you can drop off whenever you want to, or you can stay, as your time permits. Thank you, everyone. I will quickly go to Dr. Swapnil Sahoo. Dr. Sahoo, welcome aboard, for this webinar thing. Thank you so much for giving us your time to be here.
Thank you so much. I apologize. I'm having a sore throat, and also I have the classes till 6 p.m. But I'm sure I will be able to add my answers. But my answers will be brief and to the point, right?
So you just heard Anurag. He is the aviation head for Deloitte. Aviation. So Anurag was there, and we also have with us Professor Jitamitra Desai. He is from IIMB. So Dr. Sahoo, if I can quickly come to you on the technology front of it, like you heard Anurag also. And so how do we see, technological kind of advancements happening in the Indian aviation sector, coupled with the sustainability part also sort of adding to it?
Right. So, so there are three aspects here. The first is the technological developments, which improves the aviation safety. Right, aviation is something that I've been interested on since my childhood. I was born and brought up at IIT Kharagpur, and then I used to go to Kalaikunda Air Force Station, Salwa Air Force Station, and have been, my dad has been working in close terms with the DRDO, and from the things that I've seen then, and right now I'm seeing things, reading about the Raptor F-22s and how the Boeings and the Lockheed Martins of the world have been evolving. This is an amazing thing. So the first is the technological developments that improves aviation safety, and second, I will rephrase the sustainability word. I will perhaps use the AI and automation, because that is the game of the hour. This is what I believe in. But I will keep it short, right, because of my throat. So I see technology as primary driver behind this golden age of flight safety. So if you take a statistics from the first flight that was being flown till right now, you will find that the curve is slowly on a decrease. That means that somehow we as humans have done something right on the flight safety part, right? But what is upcoming? What is upcoming is the predictive safety part, right? So we are moving towards strong airframes that creates an era of predictive safety. And over here, automation and AI, I believe, is a strong thing. So on that recent Indigo fiasco, I'm sure everybody knows about it. I will not spend much detail, but the co-pilot and pilot's fatigue was a case. So I believe that if AI could be harnessed to create a digital co-pilot that never gets fatigued, can we do that? Can we create algorithms? Right now we have UAV drones that can, observe the surroundings and can effectively go from point A to point B on a route which has been mapped. And with a real-time satellite connection, can we move that? So I observe it most effectively in predictive maintenance, when algorithms analyze engines health in real time to prevent failures even before they occur, right? And the next is again for the students, because I see a lot of students have joined in. There was one of the questions there. So I feel that the students, it will open new doors for the students, like some designations I'm seeing in LinkedIn, like aviation data scientist, cyber physical security analysts, the US drone traffic managers, something like that. So I think there are exciting times there, and this is at a very high level that I would like to speak. Over to
Right,
you, sir.
Dr. Sahu, you have uh, mentioned about a lot about the analytics and data sciences and and computational processes to get AI and copilots and everything. I think we also have the person sitting over here with us who has been working continuously on mathematical and computational analytics in the aviation sector. And I can see Professor Desai giving a nice smile on this. Yes, Professor Desai, you're the obvious person. If you can give us a peek into, your studies and all that you have been doing throughout, and tell us that, where is Indian aviation heading to and what should be done? Because I can understand there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of challenges, but instead of pondering on those things, let us see how we can take that forward and what needs to be done.
Thanks, Arindam. No, I think the problems that the aviation sector faces is not India specific per se, right? So a lot of my work focuses on, say, improving the operational, excellence that, Anurag was mentioning as well on, at a particular airport. For example, if you have, a single runway at a particular airport, typically it can manage about 35 to 36 flights per hour, right? Um, Mumbai is an exception because they have the advantage of the Arabian Sea on the west coast, and so they've been able to sort of leverage that advantage to be able to get themselves to almost like 47 or 48 flight movements per hour, even using a single runway. But broadly worldwide, if you look at it, it's about 35 to 36 flight movements per hour. And so what some of the work that I do basically says that, look, can I in some ways squeeze capacity out of that particular airport by optimizing flight movements, and some of the research that we've done essentially has been able to move the needle from 35 aircraft to say 38 aircraft per hour, and 3 aircraft every hour spread across a day, and then you spread that across an entire year, essentially translates to millions of dollars of revenue for the airport,
Yes.
and a lot of cost savings for the airlines as well. I mean, so that's broadly the type of problems that we would look at. Reducing surface congestion on the airport, because the moment an aircraft pushes back from the gate, they're starting to burn fuel,
Yes.
and jet fuel contributes to about 3% of greenhouse gases comes from the aviation sector on the ground. And so a lot of this kind of optimization that I do using analytics essentially helps towards improving operations, improving making aviation operations more sustainable, improving flight routes, better departure control, savings for passengers, better movement of passengers through the airport, and so on. So we build simulation models and so on, that help passengers navigate an airport more efficiently, and so on. I also want to touch upon a couple of things that Anurag had mentioned. He was talking about 50 airports that are being constructed and so on. We talk about in our MBA classes, we talk about this notion of value creation, which is essentially what happens when you construct new infrastructure. But it's also a question of not just creating value, but it's also about value capture, right? I mean, like, so as a company, or as a government, or as an institution that is putting up, you know, large amounts of capex, how much of that value capture are you doing? Just creating a market
Right.
could possibly mean that, look, that some competitor can take your value, right? I mean, you also need to capture value
Yes.
for yourself. And so if you think of it from that point of view, I really like the models that Singapore and Dubai do, in terms of what they've been able to accomplish in the aviation ecosystem. What they have is a combination of a very strong airport. Both Dubai and Changi airports are state controlled entities, of course, but they have strong airports coupled with a strong anchor carrier, right? So Emirates Airlines, which feeds Dubai, and Singapore Airlines, which feeds Changi airport, are important pieces of the puzzle, something that you will notice that we don't have in India, right? We have airports that are controlled by different private operators or Airports Authority of India. The airlines are separate, Like, for example, if you look at Indigo and Air India, of course, controlled by the Tatas, are separate companies as compared to, say, Adani and GMR, which control the airports. So we don't have this combination of, a strong airport and an airline, which is the home carrier. Because once you have that combination is when you get that hub and spoke model where, like, every passenger that's transiting through this particular airline then lands in India at that particular hub airport. And once you have them at the hub airport, they spend on duty free shopping, they spend on retail, and then that value capture starts to come in, which I think Dubai and Singapore have done beautifully, right? So I think the next step for us in some ways, given that we have now beautiful airports that have come in, Bangalore, Bombay, if you look at Delhi and so on, we have fantastic airports. But I think we need to have that partnership between a strong airline carrier and the airport to be able to do that lovely value creation and value capture. I think that's really the next step for us in the next 5 years.
So excellent point, Professor JD. Then we cannot do without. And I would like to ask this question to both you as well as Professor Sahu on this thing.
Yeah.
Is you talked about value capturing, before that value creation, of course, is there, then the value capturing. Now, these are very management kind of things, which as a leader, as a driver of either airport or airline or both, you have to drive and look into. Now, for that, we have our MBAs like, IIMs and Great Lakes and kinds of institutes, which are shaping managers and, to think in those aspects and all. So if I come to the point that, how do you see young students sort of growing and nurturing and getting the right kind of leadership roles in the aviation sector, given the current scenario and what is going to happen in the next decade or so in India? Because as you also said that it's a growing industry at this point. So what are the prospects for students?
Sorry, Swapnil, you want to take this?
Yeah, sure, Professor Desai. But before I take this, I just wanted to add to what Professor Desai said on the previous question, right? There are just two simple points. I believe that India will become an undisputed third largest aviation market, at least by the 2030s. And the growth will not be in the metros. As Professor Desai and also earlier Anurag, I just heard, we're talking about 200 plus tier 3 cities. This is where the growth is coming. And, the two of the primary things, which the aviation ministry is also very keen is, first is the sustainable aviation fuel. Like, by 2027, 1% SFA blend is their target. And I expect domestic biofuel industry to pivot heavily towards this. And second is this electric flight. We might not have the Teslas of the aircraft coming up right now, but at least on the eVTOLs, like the electric vertical takeoffs and landing, this is something, some pilot programs would run up, and that will also bring a very, strong cost leadership towards the consumers. So it will be good for the consumers, right? So that was what I wanted to say that. But now coming back to the actual question that Professor Arindam just asked about the top MBA jobs in aviation and what is the advice, what is some leadership advice that I would like to pitch in. I would say that aviation is no longer about logistics. It is a complex system management, right? So you have to have a keen interest in machine learning where you can optimize routes. So, your designations could be as good as network and revenue manager. You need to focus on the carbon emission part, the carbon neutrality part. That is a very big area that is coming up, like a designation for sustainability lead, managing carbon credits and ESG compliance. That is a whole new area coming up. And then obviously the airport experience manager, what is the kind of experience you want to give to the consumers? We have Digi Yatra coming up, right? How do you design a smart airport, right? How can you make it less paperless, like make it completely, out of the paper, make it 100% digital? Can you do that? Can you improve on the jams that we have in front of security check-ins? Can we improve on that? So those are the things. So I suggest that, the student should focus on strategic agility. The sector is volatile, fuel prices, geopolitical shifts, tech distributions all happen overnight. And we should not just restrict ourselves to normal science of business. We have to understand the humanities of the travel, the hard science of decarbonization. I was just reading this in Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, the heuristics of travel, what kind of loss apprehensions or loss appetite a traveler has. So we have to look into the humanities side also, and not exclusively on the analytics one. And your value shall be to bridge between what happens in a cockpit about a pilot and the boardroom that we discuss on. So these are a few points that we can start off with.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahu. Professor Desai?
Yeah, so I'm going to add to me, the two big, job creation sectors that are going to come in aviation is, one is airport design. So as we build airports, as we are constructing more airports, and as we sort of transition some brownfield airports which already exist from AI control into PPP mode, airport design is, I think, one particular area which is very well known in the United States, but it's again a very nascent field. There are some consulting firms that do specific airport design activities. I think that's one certain area where our MBAs can add value. It also, I think technology, of course, is the other one, right? So as you implement, things like DigiYatra, as you implement biometrics, and as you implement, other technologically savvy advancements, I think those are broadly the two areas that I would look at. I also want to make the point that, India has this nice, unique model where we sort of take airports and we sort of hive them off into private mode, after they've sort of sometimes remained with the AI for a certain number of years. And in this transition phase, what we realized as I do work with, the government and so on, private operators, if they have to bid for an airport and they take control of that particular airport, it only makes sense for them if they're able to get a certain amount of revenue for them, right? I mean, they're not going to bid for an airport unless they make money off of it. And therefore, one of the recommendations or one of the observations that we've had is, when you have airports in small tier 2, tier 3 cities, typically it's difficult to find a bidder only for those airports. And therefore, one of the recommendations that we've made to the government is that, AI should retain control of airports until they sort of reach a certain stage of maturity. And only then should they pass them off onto the, private mode. Because then, there is a certain value for the private operator who's willing to put in a certain capex and a certain level of operating expense into the airport to be able to then get revenue and so on. I mean, the other thing we have to recognize, it's a highly regulated market, right? So AERA, the Aviation, Airport Economic Regulatory Authority, has a lot of control in terms of prices that you charge, because they just don't want a private operator jacking up prices just to be able to recapture their, costs and so on. So given this environment, I think we should recognize that, government will have a role to play, because there is going to be a large number of airports that are still with AI control. There will, of course, be an increasing number of PPP airports. And as airports get moved off into PPP, there will be job opportunities for our MBA students, both in terms of management of the airport and aircraft and airport design, as well as technology.
Right, great. Thank you so much, Professor Sahu and Professor Desai, for the excellent insights, and of course Anurag had given his insights as well. So cumulatively, it was a very interesting panel. We heard a lot of new things over here, fresh perspectives on the aviation industry, and we sort of moved on from the typical duopoly monopoly conversation to a larger aspect of it, which is a very healthy discussion at this point. Good, thank you so much. We move into the next step, which is the announcement of our winners for this month's, the three toppers for this month's for January case study contest was Adhar Anand Dikshit, MIT WPU, Ramcharan School of Leadership, Pune, Maharashtra. He wins a cash prize of 5,000 rupees, stands first. Congratulations, Adhar. We have in the second position S. Sarumati, Jamal Institute of Management, Tiruchirappalli, Tamil Nadu. She wins a cash award of 3,000 rupees. Congratulations, Sarumati. And the third position goes to Rishika Shah. She wins a cash prize of 2,000 rupees, and she comes from NSHM Knowledge Campus, Durgapur, West Bengal. So congratulations, Rishika. I think all three of them are there. So we would like to call upon three of them to briefly talk about their experience very quickly. So first, if I may ask Adhar to come over and, talk about his experience of the case study challenger. Hi, Adhar.
Thank you so much, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, so I would like to thank Business Standard and the entire Bsmart team for handing me this opportunity. And my experience with this was quite interesting because I contradicted myself on a statement. People usually say कि you should participate, हार और जीत तो बात की बात है. But if you just participate to do something, you won't have the motivation to win. For example, I personally think that you should participate to win because winning is a top peak goal. It is a bigger goal than just participating, and a bigger goal complements your increased efforts and your boosted motivation. So, what I think is participating for winning is not a wrong thing. And also, I would like to talk a bit about this case study. This case study was interesting, and this wasn't a straightforward one. Like most case studies, just will ask you to tell what will you do to rebuild Indigo situation, but this was like a character development and a role play at the same time. So this made it a bit more challenging. And as my dad usually says, कि more challenging things equals more interesting things. So I'm really happy that I secured first position. Thanks to the Bsmart team, congratulating all the winners and participants, and thank you for hearing me out patiently. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Adhar. Sarumati. Is Sarumati over? She is logged in. I don't know. We can call upon Rishika then. Rishika, are you there?
Yeah, sir. Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Okay, sir. So I'm extremely happy and grateful to share that I have won this case study competition conducted through this Bsmart application. And standing here and speaking in front of so many respected dignitaries is truly an honor for me. So while preparing for the case study, Bsmart helped me approach the problem in a very practical manner. And the real-time business insights and case-based learning trained me to identify the core issues and evaluate different alternatives and justify my decision with clarity and logic, just like a manager in real business situation. And I sincerely thank our faculty members for their constant guidance and encouragement to apply classroom concepts to real world scenarios. And I'm also thankful to our college management as well as business standard and Vsmart team for providing such a valuable learning platform. So that's it. I'm very, very thankful for this grateful opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Rishika. Next, we move on to announcing the February case study competition. Launched today, we have the new case, which is we straight away move from the aviation wars to the cola wars. It's the title we have given is Cola Wars of the Third Kind, taking off from a little bit from Spielberg's movie. The synopsis and the problem statement in brief is basically owned by Reliance, the revamped legacy brand Campa. Many of you may not have heard about it, but it's a very Indian brand which had once stormed the beverages world in India at one point. Reliance has taken over and revamped the legacy brand Campa. It has stormed the Indian market again, particularly in the tier 2, tier 3 cities. The giants are feeling a bit threatened. So the question is, how can Coca-Cola protect its stuff, its market share? So we would like to hear from the students how they strategize to take on Campa as a Coca-Cola manager. So the submission is open till Feb 16th. And then we will announce the results end of the month, end of February. And as usual, we will going to announce the winners of it through a webinar with it. So with that, we come to the conclusion of the January case study competition webinar. And once again, I thank Professor Desai and Dr. Swapnil Sahoo for taking their time out, and of course Anurag, for taking the time out and being with us and sharing such great insights. It will be good to have you in our future webinars as well as future content creation for Bsmart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arindam, for having me. Many thanks to Business Standard for hosting this webinar. I truly hope that aviation continues to be a topic of interest.
Yes.
And I do hope that India grows into a global aviation hub. Thank
Yes.
you. Jai Bharat.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much, Professor Desai and Arindam Dam, and also to the Business Standard and everyone, all the students present here. It was great hearing you, and I hope I'll come back next time with a better voice and more enthusiasm. Right? Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.